To the stage for what is a record-setting Corvettes at Carlisle 2023. If you've been down here for other walk-arounds, I've mentioned that we have set a new fun field record. Over 3,000 cars, but of course we still have tomorrow to go, so I'm not going to give you any kind of number because there's still plenty of time to add to that total. But big round of applause for a record-setting 2023. Thank you. You help make this possible with your passion and your enthusiasm, bringing your Corvettes to the event. If anybody here just parked in general Corvette parking, next year consider being part of the fun field, all right? You get to park even closer to the action, and you can bring a guest. Speaking of guests, we've got some very special ones here at Corvettes at Carlisle. They are the true rock stars of the event, they and the cars that they showcase. We have Tadge Juechter, he's the Executive Chief Engineer, Tadge. We have Harlan Charles, he's the Corvette Product Manager, Harlan. And we have Josh Holder, he's the Chief Engineer, Josh. So these gentlemen have otherwise been hanging out at the Team Chevrolet tent with about a half a dozen of these beauties. They've brought the E-Ray to town. And everybody wants to know about the E-Ray. And who better to tell you about the E-Ray? No, not the internet. The people that build it and design it. So, who wants the microphone first, gentlemen? There you go. First of all, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
What keeps you coming back to Carlisle every year?
The people. We always love to bring our latest and greatest stuff, but we really love seeing the people, and whether they get a brand new C8 or whether they have a car, a C7, 6, 5, 4, as far back as you go. We love to talk to everybody, see what they do with their cars. We get lots of input on things that people love, some things that people would like to have. We have tons of suggestions, and just basically engaging with everybody. It's, after the pandemic, we're kind of back in full form now, attending events all across the country and even around the world.
Well, we're so excited to have you back, Tadge. I'm going to hand the other microphone over to Harlan, and you gentlemen can have the floor to talk about this beautiful E-Ray and tell the consumer what it's all about.
And thanks for introducing us. We're three of many people we have here from GM. You'll see the blue-shirted folks over here. At least most of those people are actually part of the team. And you'll find a lot of other people over at our tent where we have not just E-Rays, we have the new colors, actually all of the new colors that we have for 2024. And we have our rolling chassis, so it's a cutaway car that people absolutely love. You can see underneath the skin, see some of the engineering. Actually, we are all engineers, and so the stuff under the skin excites us just as much as the beauty on the outside. So we're gonna do a 3 on you all today. We're all gonna talk about a few things. I wanted to start just general business. So thank you everybody who has supported us through the pandemic, everybody who's bought a C8. The car has been such a rousing success. We're about to, it's hard to believe, 2021, 2, 3, we're about to start our 5th model year already on the mid-engine car. And yeah, some of those model years were a little shorter than others, but I can't believe we're already in our 5th year, and really, the car's been embraced by the Corvette faithful, unlike anything I've ever seen. So we took a little risk putting the engine in the back, and it looks like it's paying off. Not just the quality of the car, the characteristics that people really appreciate it, but just it's kind of a global phenomenon. It's very successful here, but you can really go to almost any country in the world and you'll see there's a feeding frenzy of people trying to get this car. So we design it in Michigan, we build it in Kentucky, and we sell it and race it all around the world, and that's literally true now. And so many markets, people are Corvette crazy. So phenomenal success. 2023 will go down as one of, if not the highest volume Corvette model in history. Over 53,000 cars we built at a Bowling Green, and that's in spite of you've heard the material shortfalls, whether it's chips or, we see far more than what you hear in the news about things that are hard to get, things that you wouldn't think would be hard to get. It's hard to get the supply chain completely functional all around the world. And so that's what we and everybody else on the team works on every day. Let's get as many parts, perfect parts to Bowling Green so we can build as many cars as we can and get them to customers. A lot of people think, oh, you're hardly building any Z06s. We've built over 6,000 Z06s already, and we're kind of on a roll. We've built over 1,000 Z06 in a single month, which is I think, about a record for Z06 sales, and we're still going to keep pushing that to build more and more to satisfy everybody who wants one. So just to make life a little more complicated and challenging, before we've even satisfied Stingray demand, Z06 demand, we're bringing out something else, and that's the E-Ray that we see right here. And some people are puzzled as to what exactly is the E-Ray? Why did you do this? You know, it looks kind of like a Z06 and it's priced similarly. Why would you do two cars so similarly? And the truth is, we wanted to get, coming to events like this for a long time, we had people say, why don't you do all-wheel drive? Some of our competitors, Porsche 911 Turbo, all-wheel drive. Why don't you guys do all-wheel drive? And the truth is, when we had the engine in the front, it's so low and so far rearward, right up against the front of dash, there was no place to get an axle and a differential to get it out to the front wheels. It was actually a front mid-engine car, and the axle was forward of the engine, so there was no way to get forward of the engine, get power out to the wheels. When we went to a mid-engine architecture, we knew, okay, now we have an opportunity. It's much more straightforward to be able to get power to the front axle. People are seeing it's an E-Ray. Okay, you guys are just caught up in the move to electrification that's going around along the globe. Actually, no, nobody came to us and said you have to do an electrified Corvette. Had nothing to do with that. Actually, planning on this predates all the EV stuff that you see in the news now. For us, we wanted an all-wheel drive, and we wanted to have additional power if we could. And so we actually did a study, a mechanical version, so you just use the engine and siphon off some power and go to the front axle. Or could we use battery tech to save energy and power and drive the front axle? It's actually not even close. When you look at the battery technology that's been made available, and in General Motors, you know, we started with the Bolt, and we approached the same people who did batteries and propulsion systems for them, and we said, we've got this idea, we'd like to do a car that takes the wasted energy. Every time you hit the brakes, you're taking what was gas, turned into acceleration and velocity, and then when you hit the brake, all of that turns into heat. It disappears forever. So what if we could take that same energy, put it in a lightweight battery pack, and then give it right back to you next time you step on the gas? And so the team that does that kind of work was like a light bulb went on. They said, oh my God, this is so cool. We can use similar technology and provide something in a car like this. You know, not an economy car, not a runabout, but a performance vehicle. We could use the electrical technology to give something that they otherwise would not have. So it's more performance, more sure weather traction, all-wheel drive, and it's better efficiency. That comes along almost for the ride, almost free, because you're not wasting energy and you get to put that right back. So we'll talk more about that. But the one thing we really wanted to do with the E-Ray, this is something we'd struggled with for a long time. If you bought, on C7 for example, a Stingray, or a Z06, or a Z01, every time you moved up in price, we were torn, do you make it more track-oriented, more performance, more luxury? How do you balance that? Because there's a trade-off between making a car a hardcore track weapon and having daily drivability. And we know some customers, you know, they'll buy a car and they'll put it on the track, it'll just stay there. That's what they want to use it for. And other customers will use it as their daily driver. So say you're doing a Z06, okay, how much track performance do I want to sacrifice to make it more livable on a day-to-day basis? Well, this all-wheel drive car provided us the perfect way to make the Z06 a more focused track weapon, and that's perfect for some people. And for people who want the all-rounder car that does everything great, this package of technology can serve their needs even better. So you can move up without necessarily moving into an extreme kind of track car. So you'll see that from us now. We're going to try to make the most of that. So now we're just talking to a bunch of people in the tent. So now people are scratching their head. Okay, what kind of customer am I? Do I want that Z06, track machine, visceral experience? Or do I go on a car that's maybe a little easier to live with? It's the all-rounder. I don't have to worry about when it rains. I'm always going to have good traction, or even snows, heaven forbid. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to divide and conquer and give everybody the custom car that they really want, the car of their dreams that fits into their lifestyle extraordinarily well. So that's kind of a big picture. I want to get into some of the details of how we did this. I think Josh is going to start and talk a little bit more about what's under the skin, what we've done here.
Thanks, Tadge. And as Tadge mentioned, the E-Ray is very efficient, the way it handles energy, the way it transmits power. But that's not why we did the E-Ray. We did the E-Ray for performance, a way to harness the collected kinetic energy that would otherwise be wasted. And all-wheel drive performance helps us do that. So you get 160 horsepower electric front motor. We were able to package it in a way that preserves all the storage space, all the grand touring capability that we knew the E-Ray had to have. And that electric motor complements the torque curve of the LT2 engine at 495 horsepower. A lot of supercar competitors that are using electrification to enhance performance are often doing it in a supplementary way. So in other words, the electric motor might be making up for a deficiency in the internal combustion engine. Well, not the E-Ray. In the E-Ray, we're really adding those power curves together in a way that can make full use of a combined 655 horsepower with 4 feet of rubber transmitting torque to the ground. You get some blistering acceleration. 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds and a quarter mile in 10.5 seconds. The launch is extraordinary, and for those that are lucky enough to get to feel it, you'll be certainly blown away by the performance. There's some really clever chassis controls associated with the E-Ray because, again, the electric motor up front is completely mechanically decoupled from the internal combustion engine. The internal combustion engine doesn't charge the high voltage battery. The electric motor is both a motor and a generator. So when you're off the throttle or on the brake in the E-Ray, we're capturing that kinetic energy. We're generating electricity and storing it in the battery so they can be redeployed to put a big wide smile on your face. A few of us have been lucky enough to drive E-Rays for the past couple of months. And as Tadge said, the Z06 is certainly the all-out track weapon. There's no other car like it. But for canyon carving, more usable fun, right at the bottom of your foot torque and performance, the E-Ray is an awesome, awesome machine. And it's the ultimate grand tour. Still comfortable, a lot of performance, and certainly a lot of technology. I also want to dispel one more myth. There is no range anxiety with the E-Ray. You don't plug it in. You don't have to worry about the state of charge of the battery. That's all handled for you in an automatic way. We do have a feature where we'll allow a customer to put the E-Ray on what's called Charge Plus. And think of it like planning for your next maneuver. So say, for example, you want to put as much charge in the battery as you can, because the next morning you want to leave your neighborhood quietly and go as far as you can. You can put the E-Ray in Charge Plus, it will build charge into the battery, and then on your next drive cycle, you can put it into what's called stealth mode. And Harlan and Tadge drove up here in that mode. It's pure electric operation, dead quiet, and a way to maybe leave your neighborhood and not upset your neighbors early in the morning. The other use case for that is on the track. So the E-Ray wasn't meant for a racetrack. That wasn't its primary mission, but all Corvettes are track capable, and the E-Ray is certainly no exception. So allowing the customer to tailor that state of charge helps determine how long the battery will live if you want to do continuous lapping, or maybe you take it out at Charge Plus and go ahead and hit a hero lap. The E-Ray is your machine. With the electrification in the E-Ray, we had to add some other hardware. I mentioned that the front drive motor and the internal combustion engine are not connected mechanically. So we have an integrated chassis control module that does the heavy lifting for chassis controls and is the brain for distributing torque between the front axle and the rear axle, as well as handling basic chassis controls from brake interventions to steering. We want the E-Ray to be nimble, and it certainly is. We can tailor the torque delivery on the front axle to better balance the car. For example, some of you saw the now termed Cyclone maneuver that was part of the reveal in January on the 17th, 70 years to the day, by the way, that the 53 was revealed at the Waldorf. Some of those horseplay maneuvers shine on an all-wheel drive car, and especially on a car like the E-Ray. So you can really have a lot of fun with it. It's a great autocross machine. It's a good, as I mentioned, back road canyon carver like every Corvette should be. And it's another way to grow the brand, expand into the ultimate grand touring machine. Harlan's gonna talk a little bit about some of the other stuff that's new on E-Ray and anything else I forgot.
Actually, I'm going to jump in here just for a second. One of the things we were super aware of is when you electrify a vehicle, you tend to make it really heavy. Batteries are heavy, electric motors are heavy, and so what we didn't want to lose is the nimble character that we sought so hard to get by going to a mid-engine architecture. And so we were paranoid, okay, how can we minimize, and we want this system that can capture energy, how do we do it at the least possible mass? So if you go over and look at the rolling chassis, you'll see we have the battery pack in the tunnel. It's sitting right exactly at the center of gravity for the vehicle. So the vehicle without the battery rotates right around that center of gravity. So does this one. The weight distribution is slightly different. Our standard car in a Z06 is about 40-60. This one's about 42-58, so it's slightly different. But we had to put the motor in front, as Josh said. It doesn't take up any of the front luggage room, but we wanted to make sure that thing was as light as possible so it didn't feel like you have weight over the nose of the car. That's the last thing you want on a mid-engine car. And so we did everything possible to make it really, really light. So you'll see the motor, the drive unit, is like the size of a lunchbox. It's relatively small. It's very, very light. It's made of magnesium and has aluminum fasteners even, just to make it as completely light as possible. And then if you look all around the car, you'll see everywhere we tried to make the car really light. That's why there's ceramic brakes standard. So the cost of ceramic brakes is like $8,000 to $10,000 on most cars. So they're standard on this car. Even little things like the 12-volt battery, the conventional engine starting battery, that's lithium ion, which if we look at other manufacturers offers an option, a very expensive option. That's standard on this car too. So even though this car is relatively heavy for a Corvette, in terms of a performance hybrid, it's extremely light. If you look at the tire setup, the tires are the same as the Z06. So 345s in the back, 275s in the front. And when we introduced the Z06, people, if you looked around the world at high performance mid-engine cars, they usually don't have 275s. In fact, none of them have 275s on the front. We were thinking ahead, actually, and we kind of oversized the fronts just a little bit so that when we put a little more weight on the front, it would be just right. And so we can share the tire sizes on Z06 and this car. Now the standard tires on this car are all season, the highest performance, largest run flat tires available in an all season. And then you can check the box and get summer tires if you live in a warm weather climate or you plan to take the car to a track. So I wanted to fill in a few more technical details on that, but the best way to see what's great about this car is to come over the tent. We'll walk you around, show you all the details under the skin.
Thanks. You think about it, how often do we introduce a new model for Corvette, with the E-Ray? You think about, of course, we have Z06, names like Grand Sport. Those go back to like 1963. So to have an all-new name for a new performance car, the first Corvette ever with all-wheel drive and electrification. We actually trademarked the name E-Ray back in 2015. There really is a creature called an electric ray. You can see that on the deck lid of the car as our logo. And we really felt that fit in with Corvette history. If you think of the concepts, of course, Stingray, Manta Ray, Mako Shark, things like that. So we really wanted to extend the Corvette lineage. And the other thing, as we all are working on this car, we talked about the Z06 being more like a scalpel, the track weapon, and we thought the E-Ray, it does so many things well. It's really the Swiss Army knife of Corvettes. Like these guys talked about it, the incredible acceleration. It gets great fuel efficiency, actually with all this added performance, no gas guzzler tax, very similar fuel efficiency to the Stingray. And then with the four-wheel drive, weather capability. I know I talked to a lot of you guys, see you online, and it's like, oh, it's a sad day this fall. I'm putting the Corvette away for the winter. I'll see you next spring. You don't have to do that. Some people may want to do that. It's up to you. But with an E-Ray, there's no reason you can't drive that all year round and have Corvette performance for your whole year and just have fun. And the car is very easy to drive. We've been driving them, very confidence inspiring. Some of the other design features on the E-Ray, you might notice we made the body color accent standard. And one of the reasons, like Tadge was talking about, it really gives it more of the sophisticated GT look that we think is the persona of the car. You can get the carbon flash accents if you prefer, but we thought that was a good way to really set the car apart as well. And of course, these beautiful new 5-spoke wheels. I think that's a lot of our favorite wheels on the Corvette. This car has the carbon flash with the machined edge, but we also have a full black wheel, we have a titanium wheel, and we have a full polished wheel, very bright. Now, if you guys go, been over to our Chevrolet Corvette official 10, anybody been over there? Okay, anybody that hasn't, make sure you come over. This is a new color for 24, available on all Corvettes. It's called Seawolf Gray. We also have a new color, Riptide Blue and Cacti Green. We have those on display. Also, this is a new interior color called Artemis. It's unusual, kind of a khaki gray-green color, but it really, depending on the exterior, it really changes the personality of the interior of the car. We think it's a great addition to our interior lineup. Some of the other new things we have that apply to all 24 Corvettes. One of the things, again, Tadge mentioned that, we learned a lot from talking to all of you, so everybody's a part. We make changes, we always say, hey, people at Carlisle want this, or people we talk to. One of the things you asked for was, we have the easy close trunk, now we have an easy close hood. Because your hood is also a trunk, as we know, and you don't have to slam it anymore, it has a power pull down. We also have people like, I love the convertible, I love the retractable hardtop. People ask me, driving around, they go, I want to see the engine. So we came out with a new engine appearance package for the convertible, which is a window. So when you open up the tonneau in the service position, you can do that with the key fob. You can see the engine, and it also opens up the different engine cover options that we have in accessories are available on a convertible now, as well as the coupe. So we have that. We've also added a suite of safety features to the Corvette. A lot of people say they have in their other cars, or other Chevrolets, or other cars in their fleet. Things like lane keep assist, forward collision alert, emergency braking, and telebeam headlamps. And we know the Corvette is a driver's car, so what we did, we tried to make these so if you leave them, you can turn them off, or you can leave them on. We tried to make them as less intrusive as possible, so it doesn't interrupt the driving experience, but does give you an extra layer of safety features on all Corvettes. We also made the rear camera mirror standard as well on Corvettes. And then additionally on the color front, we made carbon flash a regular color, not metallic. We have that in our 10 too. We have a new wheel design, 5-split spoke wheel design for the Stingray. We have that on display. You can check that out. Never forget about the Stingrays or bread and butter. And we have that available in 2 finishes also. I'd also like to brag about a couple things while I have the mic. I'd like to say that, first of all, the Corvette has won the Quality Award 3 years in a row now, beating Porsche. And we also won last year, not only the Quality Award for our segment, but the best quality of any vehicle sold in America. So if you have friends that are driving something, European, Japanese, somewhere else, say you can upgrade your quality and your quality of life by driving a Corvette. And then Corvette Z06, Performance Car of the Year for both Road and Track and Motor Trend magazines. Car and Driver means kept the Corvette on their 10 best list. I don't know how many years in a row, but we've been on there for quite a while. And of course, we have the Blue Book Resale Value Award, which is easy to get when you guys are selling these for more than you paid for them. And so thanks to all of you. And anybody who follows Corvette racing, so hopefully you watched the 24 Hours of Le Mans. There were 21 cars entered. There were 8 Porsches, 7 Ferraris, 5 Aston Martins, 1 Corvette, and 1 Corvette finished ahead of all the rest. 24 Hours Le Mans champions and the 100th anniversary. And we've also clinched the World Endurance Championship, World Championship with 2 races to go for the year. So they challenged us to come over and race the Corvette internationally. You know, they were tired of us just going to Le Mans only, so we went international and we rewarded by with our one car winning the World Championship. And so we're really proud of that. And I would just like to also thank all of you for make sure you come see all the other things we have on display. The cutaway chassis, you have to see that. All the stuff that Tadge and Josh have been talking about, you can see that visibly in the cutaway. And check out the new colors, and you can sit in all the cars and try them out. And you can even see the engine window for the convertible. We have that on display also.
Harlan, what about the fuel mileage?
Awesome job, Harlan.
He's
And
asking
Josh. So do you want to try to take on questions? This isn't the best forum for questions, but
What is the fuel mileage? E-Ray?
okay.
No, the fuel mileage on the E-Ray is very similar to the Stingray, which is really great. No gas guzzler tax. And you think about all that added performance, you know, quickest 0 to 60 time ever, and adding the all-wheel drive, and still being at the level of this thing. You know, a lot of people brag about how great the fuel efficiency is. And then a lot of people, let's face it, a lot of you guys say, I don't care about fuel economy, just give me more performance. But that's what makes this a great vacation car, a road trip car, because you can have, you know, 400 plus miles of range in between stops pretty easily, and it just makes it, you know, convenient to drive cross country, drive to Carlisle, to the museum, wherever you're going.
Just to tack on, you know, this shares bodywork with the Z06. So you think about 345 rear tires, all of the cooling openings that we have. So this car got the bodywork of a race car. And so it's a huge challenge to get good fuel economy. You might think, okay, it's got an LT2 in it, the fuel economy should be about the same, but it has a huge number of strikes against it. Putting performance tires that are this wide on, all the cooling that you need, because you can't just cool the engine, you have to cool the battery pack, the power electronics, you have to cool the motor, keep it cool. Like on a racetrack, you have to keep it cool, so there's lots of heat exchangers, actually more heat exchangers than on a Z06. All of that cooling requirement actually adds drag to the car, and so it's quite an amazing accomplishment actually to have all of that stuff and just have this small little hybrid system be able to fully offset that and get you fuel economy like a Stingray.
Yeah, as Harlan said, if you haven't come to the tent to see the rolling chassis, come over and do it, because the systems Tadge just described and that we've all talked about are on display there. We all bounce ideas off each other as we're going through this. We could talk for hours about the E-Ray and remember certain things. And one thing I want to mention, Ted just talked about how the E-Ray shares body panels. And there's been some concern that, well, if Bowling Green is going to build the E-Ray alongside the Stingray and the Z06, it might take away some volume from Z06, and I can promise that will not be the case. The E-Ray was planned from the beginning to be a part of the manufacturing footprint. The systems that are unique to the E-Ray are built into Bowling Green's assembly process. For example, when the battery is installed from under the E-Ray, the Stingray and the Z06 go through that assembly station. The E-Ray stops and gets a battery loaded. And I also wanted to mention that the front drive unit and the high voltage battery are manufactured by us, by General Motors in Brownstown, Michigan. So we've got control over the systems that go in the E-Ray. We're not purchasing them, and we can make the most out of our assembly footprint.
Even down to the motor windings. Josh and I were actually just there, and we didn't even know it, that the motor for the front axle, all the way down to actually putting the copper windings in the motor is done by us, and it's done 40 miles from where we work. So everything, the whole build of the Power Pack 2, done there in Brownstown, Michigan. So we can try to take a few more questions to see if this works. You have a question over here? Question is, at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, how similar is that to the race car? We pride ourselves on keeping the race car and the street car as close together as possible. The teams work in parallel, and our teams are very close together physically in Michigan. And so it's been this way for a long time. All the GT endurance racing, we've used as much production parts as we can. So the race car actually starts with our production aluminum frame as it is made in Bowling Green. So they start with that. If you look at the cars we're competing against, it's effectively a one-off, like a prototype race car. Even though it looks a little bit like a street car, we're competing against cars that are basically full-on race cars. Our car shares far more in terms of content than do the cars we're competing against.
Yeah, the 127, the 24-hour car, except that car has less horsepower than the production car, production Z06 that it's based on.
And only two-wheel drive.
Because of rules.
Another question over here.
What kind of alignment do you have on the front end? I mean, is it negative camber?
So the alignment specs on the E-Ray, much to do with the size of the tire, which is common with the Z06. The specifications are the same. And the track settings specs, should you choose to take the E-Ray on a track, would be the same as the Z06.
So you wouldn't get very good mileage on the highway with it.
If you were to use the track settings on the highway, which we do not recommend, you may see fuel economy deterioration, yes. But that's why it's meant for a track-only setting.
And uneven tire wear. You wouldn't want to have extreme camber on the street because you're going to wear out
So
inside of the tires.
It's a street setting then, more or less.
Yep. Okay, up here. You're going to have to shout it out.
I'll say this one more time. You do not have to plug in an E-Ray. Don't buy a charger. Don't worry about the charging standard, the charging setup. It's all done automatically for you. So the electric front motor is also a generator. And we're closely monitoring the power flow in and out of the battery in a seamless way so that all you do is drive the E-Ray and get a big white smile on your face.
It's extremely protective of its battery state of charge. And so even though you don't really notice anything happening, every opportunity it has, it'll steal some energy to put back in the battery. In fact, you can beat the hell out of the car. You go out for a really aggressive drive, you come back to your garage, it's hard to get back with anything less than an almost full state of charge. It seems like the energy comes for free. And some people are saying, well, I'm not sure about electricity. I'm not sure I like that in the car. You can think of it as a free bottle of nitrous. And it gives this boost to the car, and it's pretty crazy acceleration. When you want to go to pass somebody, we broke some records for all time in our passing testing at Milford Proving Grounds. And then it's not just a bottle of nitrous, it's a bottle of nitrous that fills itself up all the time, and you don't have to pay attention to it. Like Josh said, if you want to fill it up fast, and there's gauges on the cluster, you put in Charge Plus, and you can actually watch it. You can just drive a couple of miles, and you can put it all the way to full, so you know you've got as much battery energy on board as you can get.
For example, we were doing those blistering drag race passes I was talking about at the drag strip. By the time we'd come back down the strip and get back to the staging lane, the battery's recharged.
Question is, what's the price point? This is a good question for Harlan.
The E-Ray starts at $104,500, and it's not inexpensive, but if you compare it to cars with similar technology, actually there's not too many, but for example, there's a McLaren, Artura, the Ferrari 296. What they did on those cars, when they ended their electrification, they reduced the V8 to a V6 and to fit the electric motor in there, and it stayed with rear drive. Now we know you guys don't want a V6, right?
No.
So we are the only ones with a naturally aspirated V8 electrification, all-wheel drive, and we're about a half to a third of the price of those cars.
On your website, I do believe it says it starts at 102, actually.
You know, this is a smart boy right here. It does start at 102. On the website, they don't include the destination. So, but you're right. You're absolutely right. So I bumped it up. I didn't have to. But it does include, the price I gave includes the destination shipping charge. So, but you're a smart kid.
I know just about every car out there. I love this stuff. This is my stuff.
Here we go. This is our future Corvette driver. Kevin. You're famous. think you're going to top this young man, but do better.
Do scissor doors first. Okay, scissor doors. Oh, so cool. How many people actually would like a Corvette with scissor doors? Looks like you are alone on that one. So, scissor doors look cool. You know, they're up there in the air. Have you ever owned a car with scissor doors? He says it's functional for him. He would say that until he hits his head, climbing in and out, because the point of the door goes above your head. You would say that until you have to get out of the car after it's been raining, and the door is now above you, and you have to crawl out of the car, and it's dripping dirty water on you. You can think about a scenario where you, God forbid, you get in an accident, you roll over, and the car is on its roof. How do you get out? Your scissor doors. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants over here thinks we should make it an option. So when you design a car, and probably you should come design cars with us, you'll realize how complicated doors are. Doors are such an integral part of the body. It's not like you just bolt one kind of door on or another kind of door on. The hinges are completely different. The swing is different. The way the counterbalance, when you have to do a scissor door, doors are heavy. If you felt one off the car, it's very heavy. So you have to have a way of counterbalancing that. So you need some kind of mechanism to hold that weight up for you, because you don't want to lift it up. And it has to stay up there. And it has to be reliable. Because if it's not reliable, someday it's going to fall on you. So it has to be dead reliable. So there's a lot of considerations that we go through on whether or not to do scissor doors. And then you have the convertible complication. We want to use the same doors on coupes and convertibles. And it's a different problem set to do it on a convertible. Even though all our cars are convertibles, the way the doors swing, we're trying to give you cars at reasonable prices. And so if we engineered a whole scissor door for the oddball who wants one, the whole car is going to get more expensive. So ventilation B-pillar, you've been talking about like what we have right now, engine out ventilation? So you have a C8 coupe? So on a C8 coupe, on either side of the back window in the hatch, we have those vents. And those are there to let hot air, they actually are straight above the exhaust manifolds. So you get a natural convection where that hot air rises and comes out those vents. So we effectively do have vents like that. The B-pillars you're talking about are quite far outboard, away from that. And so the flow path would not be nearly as effective as what we actually have in your coupe. Anybody else? I think he raised his hand first, then we'll go to you.
So, message for you, Tadge, question. Will you be retiring next year or taking a package?
I'm enjoying Carlisle this year, and you're asking me about next year. We don't talk about future plans, whether they're car plans or personal plans, so thank you, I appreciate the question. I should have gone with you.
That's me!
So in stealth mode, Josh was talking about Charge Plus. So if you're thinking, okay, in the morning, I'm going to go out and I want to get out to the highway before I start the car, or I want to get to somebody I don't like's neighborhood and start in front of their house, you can put in Charge Plus, blast it all the way up, and you'll typically you can get 4 miles, 5, depends how fast you drive, depends on whether there's hills. So it's like a few miles before it'll start automatically for you, or if you said, okay, I'm ready to start now, there's a bunch of ways to start it. You can just reach down on the mode knob, you give that a turn, and it fires right up. Or step into it. If you go over 45 miles an hour, it'll automatically start also. 4 or 5 miles. I've gone 4 miles easily. I have never tried to see how far I could get before it drained completely down or got to a point where it had to start the, but it's surprisingly far, and it's also surprisingly powerful. You can go up some really steep hills with it. It seems like, oh my God, is this electric motor going to be able to do it? But like Harlan likes to say, the 160 horsepower, that's more horsepower we had on the first Corvette in 1953, and you got that just on the front axle. Okay, we're keeping going, I guess.
Don't worry, I'm not going to ask about retirement. How many miles should you expect on all season versus the summer tires? Differential.
Tire wear. Do you have any idea on
Not
summer
including
versus
burnout.
all-season? I think it's a rating 540 tread wear on these. You can get pretty good tread wear on these. So I think all season would be a little better, but we get pretty decent tread wear on all. Do you have a
Yeah, the all season would last a little bit longer, but like Ted said, if you keep them properly inflated, check alignment, maintain them well, you'll get good life out of both. The all seasons would go 5,000-10,000 miles further probably than the summer tire.
shout out to Michelin? They are unbelievable. The technology that they put into the tires, and they look at us instead of the tip of the spear of technology, especially in performance tires, and now we've expanded all the way from all season up to cup tires, and they really look forward, and they put enormous technical advanced research into tires for Corvette, and it really shows in the cars. Yes.
I was just going to add, it's really hard to tell. I've been driving the car with the all seasons compared to the PS4S on the road. You can't I challenge anybody to tell the difference. The way the car grips, it can handle anything the road can bring to you. Even on the all seasons, amazing grip the car gets with the all-wheel drive. It's just confidence inspiring.
Kilowatt. How many kilowatt hours do you have on the battery and the motor?
So kilowatt hours, it's actually 1.9 kilowatt hours. So very small. If you compare it to any EV, it's crazy small. But it's always, and we only use 1.1. We actually use the battery very lightly because energy is going in and out all the time, and we want it to last the life of the car. And so the battery is actually very low stress. We keep it very cool. We keep it right in the right temperature range. So it's by EV standards, it doesn't even make sense. But it's all because we want to store a reasonable amount of energy, like a usable amount of energy. An interesting fact is if you look at this car at top speed, so 180 something miles an hour, the total energy that it takes to get up to that speed, the kinetic energy of the car, that's equal to the energy in the battery pack. So it's like one full stop from the very top speed, that energy can go into the battery. And what was your second question? Okay, you asked about,
Kilowatt on the motor as well as the
well, it's 160 horsepower, so you can convert that to kilowatts on the motor.
And there's been some related questions about, well, why didn't you put a bigger battery in it? And there would be a point, that's not the mission of this car. It's this fun factor, this redeployment of kinetic energy. And a bigger battery could allow us to go further in stealth mode, for example, but that's not why the E-Ray exists. It's all about optimizing that performance. So there's a point where a bigger battery is just more weight to carry around. And the electric motor, again, the first question is, well, what if you put a bigger electric motor in it? Well, very quickly it would overwhelm the tractive grip of the front tire. Again, remember, most of the weight on the mid-engine architecture is still over the rear axle. So yeah, we could have done a more powerful motor, but it wouldn't necessarily have improved performance if now suddenly we're just not able to transmit that torque to the ground.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes actually getting traction control interventions on the front axle, it's not a feeling we've ever had before, but under certain conditions, it's amazing. It's got so much torque off the line that if maybe a little wet or a little slippery, you'll actually get tire spin on the front axle. And this is a remarkable solution that we weren't positive would work out, would be nicely balanced throughout the car. This was like a theoretical project, but it ended up being, we could fit just the right amount of energy into the center tunnel, which any of you who has been in a Corvette since C5, we have a backbone tunnel. All our cars are convertibles, and so we need that backbone, so we have that structure in there to make the car very stiff. Race cars need that, street cars need that, and so we had that space. So right from the very beginning, we were planning on the battery fitting in there. We didn't know exactly how much energy we were going to get, but one thing we did know is that structural tunnel had to remain intact. So if you remember when we were talking about Stingrays and Z06s, we run cooling lines and things down that tunnel, and we actually close it out on the bottom with a carbon fiber piece to make that tunnel closed on 4 sides to make it very, very stiff. The battery takes the place of that carbon piece, and so it acts actually as the structural reinforcement, and there's a big aluminum plate on the bottom that holds the battery and makes that mechanical connection to the tunnel to create that full structure again. We're getting more questions faster, go ahead.
My question deals with the ZER option. ZER option,
other than the tires change, differential, is there anything that's different in that as far as suspension goes or handling?
So questions on the ZER option. Actually, it does have a different suspension code, but basically the only difference are the tires. In the original, theory behind it, we were going to do a little bit more performance option to take advantage of the summer tires. And when we were developing the car calibration was so robust you could use either tire with the same calibration and keep the same magnetic ride control, comfort, and performance all in one. So it's basically became just a tire option.
Yeah.
Can you clarify that a little?
A couple more questions. We'll take the car away.
Can you
So yeah, just to finish the question, this always wanted to be an all-rounder, so we weren't trying to stretch from like a base Stingray up to a Z06, so we didn't really have a need to split the chassis far apart. And so like Harlan was saying, the bars and springs and so forth, to create that nice all-around package, it comes down to a customer choice. Do you want summer tires or you want all-season tires? And like Harlan was saying, when you drive this car in all-season tires, you think, oh my God, do I even need summer tires? It's so nice to live with these and have the confidence when it's raining. Because when it's dry, it's a killer car, it's a killer sports car. It doesn't feel like it's lacking in anything.
So if
a couple more questions.
If I order the ZER and I order with either.
So it sounds like you have a very specific question about what you want to order. My suggestion is you come to our tent,
All right.
and we'll
Okay,
talk
go
you
ahead.
through the whole
Go ahead.
thing.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Yellow,
Okay.
and then you two.
Using the C8 engine, does it have an option like Z51 or is it needed? It's got the C8 engine. I got the Z51 package. Is there a performance package needed?
Okay, that's related to the last question. The question is there something like the Z51 option on this? And the closest thing we have that is what he was just talking about, is the summer tire package on this. But this car starts life as being kind of a Z51 car anyway, kind of that on the spectrum of performance and comfort. It's very similar to a Z51. Okay, you two, and then I think we're calling it.
What's the lifespan on the battery? What's the lifespan on the battery?
Lifespan on the battery. You want to talk about the battery warranty?
Sure. We actually have we did a special warranty just for the E-Ray battery that's 8 years, 100,000 miles. We feel it'll last longer than that, though. It'll last the life of the car, so it shouldn't be an issue that you'd ever have to really worry about.
So when we do the warranty, we want it to perform like new through the warranty period. Batteries will decay slowly over time. You know that from your phones and everything else. They'll decay slowly over time. So we feel like 8 years, 100,000 miles, the car's if you get in the car, it'll feel like it was when it was new. It'll manage its own small decay. The truth is the battery's not gonna fail at the end of that time. It'll just slowly taper off in capacity, which means it'll adapt itself to your driving style and the capacity it has. It'll use what it can use. So it's not like you're gonna fall off a cliff at some point. We expect, 20 years from now, there'll be an awful lot of people who still have the original battery in it. Next, last.
This car have air conditioning in electric mode?
Question, does this car have air conditioning electric mode? And Josh was talking about how we completely separate the internal combustion with the EV stuff. The truth is the AC compressor is tied to the engine, so it needs to be spinning to pump refrigerant and pump. So the answer is no. But you're not in EV mode for very long. The farthest you can go, we were just talking about, is like 4 miles. So you're doing a cold start effectively, like in the situation Josh was talking about. So you're leaving your exit in the morning. If you want AC, you hit AC and the engine will just start. Okay. All right, so I think that wraps it up. Thanks very much for coming. If you want to see the exact same show again, we'll be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. So thanks very much for coming. Bye.